Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I thought Sean McDonough, the broadcaster, did a great job of explaining everything that made Michigan who they were all year basically fell apart for them as they lose this game. And so as we look ahead and as we talk big picture, I think that to me is the biggest takeaway. Michigan to me, again, it's a lot like that other school that wears scarlet and gray, right? You can have two differing opinions on the Wolverines coming out of this game, and I think they can both be true. I think on the one hand, if you're a Michigan fan and you're disappointed, it's hard for me to not feel disappointed for you, right? Because the bottom line with Michigan is this year was even different from a year ago. Last year, nobody thinks you can actually beat Ohio State. You do it. You come to the college football playoff. Everybody says, can you beat Georgia, this, that, the other thing. But even the Michigan players admitted in the lead up to this game that, to be honest, last year against Georgia, they were just happy to be there. They were just happy to be in the playoff, happy to be the Big Ten champ, happy to have accomplished all of the goals that everybody said they couldn't do. Well, this year they came to Phoenix to win this game and to play for a championship. And so that's where I think you have to be a little bit frustrated if you are a Michigan fan, because everything was lined up really nicely for you, right? Everything was lined up nicely for you. You beat Ohio State again, and we'll get to the Ohio State and the big picture of that in a minute. But you beat Ohio State again. You put yourself in position. There is no doubt now. You smack them again in Columbus. There is no doubt you're the best program in the Big Ten. Now you're coming to the playoff, not as the hunted, but the hunter. And it's like, okay, we got the matchup that we wanted against a TCU team that we think we can bully. And at the very least, we will get to a national championship game. And if we match up with Georgia, if they're just better than us, okay. But we're ready for Georgia. We played them last year. We think we can get some revenge. And then, oh, by the way, if we get that Ohio State team we just beat, we feel pretty good against them. And so that's why I feel like if you're a Michigan fan, you're allowed to be frustrated after Saturday night. Now, I don't think it's the sky is falling or this program has hit its peak under Harbaugh, which we'll get into in a second. But I do think it's okay to feel frustrated. It was all there. You beat Ohio State. You get the 2 seed. You get the matchup that you want. You're playing the team that beat you last year, so there's the revenge factor to it. I'll tell you, I live in Los Angeles. There is a huge Michigan alumni base. I can't even imagine what the crowd would have been like at SoFi Stadium if Michigan gets there. Instead, they don't, and they lose this game. So that's one perspective of the Michigan side, and I understand that perspective if you're a Michigan fan. I will say this, though. I might be the only one. Maybe I'm 2 glasses half full. I actually think, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of positives to take out of this game, even though you lost, even though you want to win a championship, even though you wanted to at least play for a championship. I think there's actually a lot of positives to take out of this game. The biggest one to me, you know what the single biggest takeaway to me of this game from the Michigan perspective is and will be? It's that just think about all the things that went wrong for Michigan in this game, the ones that we already discussed. Goal line, they screw up on the first series of the game. Have a call overturned by the refs, which it was just brutal and inexcusable. That was an awful call. It should have been a touchdown. On top of that, you fumble the next play, so you just cost yourself 7 more points. You have a pair of pick sixes by J.J. McCarthy. I'm not blaming him. It's just a fact. And on top of that, and I think this is important, like I said a minute ago, you really didn't run the ball all that well. Now, the stats are deceiving. Stats will say 200-plus yards rushing. The stats will say almost 5 yards per carry. But it was a couple big runs from J.J. McCarthy. It was a big run from Donovan Edwards on the first drive of the game. But you couldn't run the ball. And so this is why I think there's a positive. There's a silver lining for Michigan. If all of those things happened a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, game's over. You're now 21-6 at the half against a good team that can put pressure on you at all times on offense. You're not coming back to win that game if you're Michigan because you're not built to come back in that game. And so what has been the big conversation about Michigan the last 3, 4, 5 years? Why can't Jim Harbaugh develop a quarterback? And more importantly, is J.J. McCarthy the guy to finally take them to the next level? And I know he had 2 pick sixes, but I also will say this for J.J. McCarthy. If there was probably any other quarterback of the Jim Harbaugh era under center, when you fall down 21-16, when you fall down whatever it was, late in the third quarter, they give up 14 straight, so you're down 35-16, I guess. You're not coming back and winning that game. And so the fact that J.J. McCarthy could not only put that team on his back, but he could do it passing the ball. He could do it throwing the ball. He could do it finding Ronnie Bell and Roman Wilson and all of the guys and everything that he did. I think that is a huge positive, even though, of course, you don't want 2 pick sixes. 343 yards, 10 yards per completion. And then on top of that, he added the rushing component as well, 52 yards rushing with the 1 touchdown. And so to me, I don't think you can undersell how big that is because 5 years ago, 2 years ago, last year against Georgia, you didn't have that component. So you already have the run game. You already have the defense. Now you have the quarterback that can beat you with his arm and beat you with his legs. For the 1 more year that you'll probably have him, I think that sets things up really nicely for next year. And I'll take it a step further. Again, I understand Michigan fans are disappointed today, right now, in this moment with the Wolverines. At the same time, here's the bottom line. 1, you've established yourself as the best program in the Big Ten, period. That could change in a month or not in a year when you play Ohio State again. But you think about the fact that coming off back-to-back playoffs, there's no doubt anymore. Last year was, it feels good, and they had all these super seniors, and Aiden Hutchinson came back, and what about this guy, and can they really do it again? Well, you did do it again. You did it in Columbus, and now you're the best program in the Big Ten. And, oh, by the way, you destroyed a really good Penn State team that, as I record here, is getting set to play in the Rose Bowl on Monday. So you are the best team in the Big Ten, and I'll say this. You look at the schedule next year, things actually break pretty nicely for Michigan to be back in this spot again next year. What is Michigan? What is the one thing that Michigan's going to have next year that we know Ohio State and we know Penn State won't have? An established starting quarterback. I guess in theory, Ohio State could return C.J. Stroud. I don't expect it to happen. But Ohio State's got to figure out, is Kyle McCord the guy? Is Devin Brown the guy? Are the backups the guy? Do they have to find somebody in the portal? Penn State, they might have a better quarterback in the backup, Drew Allaire, than they do with Sean Clifford. But you have your 2 biggest rivals, or at least the 2 programs that are best built to beat you, first-year quarterbacks. You do have to play at Penn State, but you get Ohio State in Ann Arbor again. And so to me, I think that's the silver lining. Assuming Jim Harbaugh leaves and we're already getting the weird assuming Jim Harbaugh stays, because we're already getting the weird flirtations, and I saw the Broncos are quote-unquote looking into him. I don't know what you need to look into. The guy wins everywhere he goes, including the NFL. But assuming Jim Harbaugh stays, you're in position to do this again next year. The out-of-conference schedule is, again, really soft. Remember, they canceled the game with the home-and-home with UCLA. So the out-of-conference schedule is soft. You do have to play Nebraska, which maybe will be interesting under Matt Rule. You do have to play Minnesota, which is always tough under PJ Fleck. But you're going to get Penn State with a first-year quarterback. You're going to get Ohio State at home with a first-year quarterback. I think this sets up really, really nicely for Michigan.